Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Charlotte, North Carolina, where there is certainly some very interesting things going on. Some very interesting things going on in the ACC. I thought this was interesting. So Duke is the favorite. Surprise, surprise, minus 375. Louisville plus 550. Clemson plus 600. Plus 2,500 for Carolina. Plus 5,000 for SMU. So first of all, this is interesting to me. We know Duke's the favorite. That is not surprising. Duke, as best I can tell, in the BetUS odds, has the second shortest odds. In other words, you have to risk the most money to win the least amount of money of any team in March Madness in these conference tournaments. The only one that has better odds is McNeese State with Will Wade. And the crazy part about McNeese is they only play 2 games in their conference tournament, and the conference tournament is at their home building. So if you believe that somebody other than Duke is winning this tournament, you can get very good odds on it at the BetUS Sportsbook. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. Listen, biggest story, I think you could really argue it's 3 stories. First off, is this just the Duke Invitational? Listen, 19-1 in league play. Only loss was at Clemson in a game that they easily could have won. And as we've discussed time and time again, you can hate Duke, but they just have destroyed people the last month of the season. I think it's official. I believe Duke is actually now number 1 in the AP poll. So Duke is, let's see here. I want to check really quick here. Let's see. The new AP poll came out. Duke is officially number 1. They get 52 first place votes. Okay. So Duke is officially number 1. They've been destroying everybody. We've talked about it. You don't have to love Duke, the brand, but I mean, what they're doing is unbelievable. 13-point win at Carolina, 33-point win over Wake, 35-point win over Florida State, 37-point win over Miami. By the way, Jay Lucas is officially at Miami. He had a press conference on Monday morning. So that's, I think, thought number 1. Thought number 2, as far as the big stories, is obviously, is this just a 3-bid league? We're going to get to the bubble in a minute, but the only teams that are in this tournament that have locked up NCAA tournament spots, it's Duke, it's Clemson, and it's Louisville. And I think, to me, the third story is not really the bubble as much as Carolina. Listen, I've been critical of Hubert Davis. This team is playing really well. They had won 6 in a row coming into Duke. Problem is, I just think Duke is such a tough matchup for Carolina. Duke is the biggest team in terms of height and length in the entire sport. Carolina is small and not very big. And in some ways, I feel bad for Carolina. I guess I shouldn't. But I'm actually a little bit more bullish on this program just in general. I think getting that GM in place was important. I think they were behind on NIL, but it doesn't change the fact that they need to make a little bit of a run here in the conference tournament to actually get into the NCAA tournament. Okay, so let's talk bubble. And first of all, let's start with Carolina. And before we even get to the bubble, I want to say this about Carolina. To me, they're just a fascinating story because, again, and we talked about this a week ago, how much do they just get punished for playing a hard schedule? Like, again, I know you can only let in 68 teams. I know Carolina doesn't have a great resume. I do think if you're going to give anybody the benefit of the doubt, it's the team that probably played the hardest out-of-conference schedule in all of college basketball. Remember, they played Auburn in Maui. Auburn was the SEC regular season champs, going to be a number 1 seed. They played Michigan State in Maui, Big Ten regular season champs. They could be a number 1 seed. Played Florida on a neutral, number 1 seed potential. Alabama on a neutral, potential number 1 seed potential. So it's like of their, they're what, 21 and 11, 20 and 11, I think, coming into this. 20 and 12, I believe, is the record. Of those losses, 6 were to teams that could potentially end up being number 1 seeds going into the NCAA tournament. And so I think they should get a little bit of a benefit of the doubt. Like, if they just didn't go to Maui and stayed home, they'd have a tournament resume probably right now, or they'd have 2 more wins, whatever. Bottom line is, I think North Carolina should be given a little bit of a benefit of the doubt. But as we get to the bubble, listen, there's 3 teams, and I think all of them have an uphill battle to actually put together a tournament resume. Carolina actually opens on Wednesday as the 5 seed. They'll play the winner of Notre Dame Pitt. I think that goes without saying. You lose that one, you're not getting into the NCAA tournament, okay? So that one is pretty obvious. Where it gets interesting, though, North Carolina as the 5 seed will play Wake Forest as the 4 seed in the quarterfinals on Thursday. That is certainly a bubble elimination game. Both teams, Wake Forest is really on the fringes of the bubble conversation right now. They just took so many bad losses late. Virginia at home, at Florida State. North Carolina, I think they're probably in the bubble mix a little bit more than Wake Forest, but this is another one. If you lose this game, it's hard to see either team getting in. For North Carolina, this would actually be a quad 2 loss. I think for Wake Forest, it at least gives you another quad 1 win, but both teams need to win. And then the unfortunate thing for both teams is even if you win that game, you are on the wrong side of the bracket because you would have Duke in the semis, barring Virginia or Georgia Tech beating them, which, by the way, people, it ain't happening, okay? So Wake Forest, North Carolina needs to win their opener. Whoever loses that Wake Forest, North Carolina 4-5 game is out. I think even whoever wins probably needs to beat Duke to have any real, feel good going into Selection Sunday. We'll see if that happens. Other bubble team, bottom of the bracket, SMU, 6 seed. SMU, their problem, 0 quad 1 wins right now. 0 quad 1 wins. So they will play the winner of Florida State and Syracuse. I think with SMU, listen, you got to beat Clemson, probably got to beat Louisville to get into the bubble mix. The issue is, for me, I just don't know if it's going to happen. SMU 22-9, 0 quad 1 wins. And I'll tell you, I think Clemson's just an awful matchup for them. Clemson, say whatever you want about Clemson. Bunch of grown-ass men, excuse my language, grown you-know-what men in that team, on that team, and in that program. And so it's hard to see the scenario where SMU, a team that just played Clemson and got obliterated when they played a few weeks ago. It's just hard for me to see a scenario where SMU pulls off the upset. So those are the 3 bubble teams. They all need wins. As far as dark horses are concerned, it's just hard for me to see anybody other than those 3 NCAA tournament teams, Louisville, Clemson, and Duke, winning this conference tournament. Listen, I think Stanford is kind of interesting as a 7 seed to make a little bit of a run, 19-12, 11-9. Problem with Stanford is they lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They've lost their last 5 games away from home. Okay, so the west to east travel has not been great for Stanford. But even then, you'd have to beat Louisville, who you just lost to this past weekend. And I could sit here and lie and pretend. I don't see the scenario where anybody makes a real run. So who ends up winning this tournament, how it goes down, I'll be real. I think that late semifinal, Louisville and Clemson, will be awesome. It's weird because I think Louisville matches up better with Clemson in some ways than Duke does. But I think Louisville gets the win. Listen, Pat Kelsey is a beast. Okay, what he has done is unbelievable. And I'll say this too, even like Clemson and Louisville finishing 18-2 in this league is probably not getting enough credit because of the fact that it's just like, man, dude, Duke ran away with it. The bottom is so bad that we aren't acknowledging Louisville and Clemson enough, both finishing 18-2. Do think Louisville beats Clemson. Think Louisville plays Duke tough. They actually played them very tough when they played at the KFC Yum Center to really early in ACC play. It was either late December or early January. I actually think it was late December. I think college football was still going on. And so bring it up because that's who I have winning that conference. Again, it's just very hard for me to see any scenario where Duke loses. I do think Louisville will give them a game, but I do have 1 versus 2 with Duke winning the ACC tournament. By the way, I think if Clemson gets there, Clemson can give Duke fits because Clemson is just a really, really, really tough, grown-up adult team that is not afraid of that Duke team.